morning. I'm here with Erick Strickland. And before I kind of talk about Erick, I wanted to share a little bit about our new book, Leaving Your Life Imprint. It will be coming out on Amazon and within the next month here. And so you can do some pre-ordering, and then we're going to have a big launch on April the 4th at Christ Church, and a lot of friends, family, and acquaintances to come and have Erick and his wife. So we're really excited about that, and excited about the story. But this today is kind of a compilation of another story, and that's the importance of developing some leadership skills. And as Erick and I will get a chance to tell you, building a legacy company or building, towards a legacy company, it doesn't just happen, and so I'm looking forward to hearing him share today. But anyways, get right into it. Erick, welcome.
Thank you.
He's the executive director of a company called 3LS, Three-Legged Stool. And he's going to tell us a little bit about that experience. And, I've found that, one of the great things about being a leader is learning along the way. And so Erick's going to tell us a little bit about how he got involved with a 3LS company, which he's going to tell us about an ESOP program too, which I really want to hear a little bit more how that all developed. And so he'll give us a little bit of the history and details about that.
Well, glad to be here, Kenny. Thank you for having me. Excited about the book.
Yeah.
And happy to share a little bit about this company we've put together and this weird name that we gave it. As Kenny mentioned, 3LS stands for Three-Legged Stool, and Three-Legged Stool is our company's core business philosophy. So let me tell you a little bit more about what the business does before I tell you what the business philosophy is. So 3LS is the parent company for a group of behavioral health and social service organizations. So we work with kids and families, kids that are in foster care. We do adoptions for kids that are in foster care, and we also provide behavioral health services to kids and families in several states in the Southeast. Those organizations work together on this three-legged stool concept that is focused on program quality, service quality, growth. We need to grow as an organization every year a bit, and physical accountability. So those are the three legs of our three-legged stool concept. And as we have grown from one company, our original company was called Omni Visions, founded 28 years ago now in 1991. As we grew from one company to multiple companies, and we grew in our journey as an employee-owned company, we reorganized, and we moved all of the support back office type folks into this 3LS organization, and we gave it this sort of obscure name for lots of reasons, but the reality is it's not about us.
Yep.
It's about the Omni Family of Services and the work that we do with kids and families. So 3LS sits in the background, tries to take care of all the back office pieces, and really works on our ESOP, employee ownership program, to ensure that the folks that work with us can be secure in their future and have a nice retirement to look forward to while they focus all of their time and attention on taking care of kids and
families. That's great. Erick, when you talk about an ESOP program, that was so appealing to me when I joined up as a company under 3LS, because I couldn't do that for my own employees. How powerful has that been, just your experience in seeing for those small businesses and leaders that are listening? Were you a part of that initial decision making, or did you make that decision, or what?
So no, I wasn't part of the original decision making. I actually I came to the company about 7 or 8 years after the first employee ownership program was actually created. But for folks listening, ESOP stands for ESOP, or Employee Stock Ownership Program. And it's a qualified retirement program like a 401k or a pension program, defined benefit type program. Our ESOP, which is independently overseen by a trustee, owns 3LS and all of our companies. And every year, our employees that come to work for us, they have to work here for a year, and then they become eligible to participate in the ESOP program. They earn a contribution into their account every year, much like a state pension would be. Although what's unique about this and what I think is so powerful in our world is that a pension at the state is a defined benefit program, right? So
Right.
you know that if you work so long, you're going to get so much. In our organization, we have to be successful in making our organization more valuable. And as we do that, all of the employees that work here are going to benefit because they're, at the end of the day, the ones that own the company.
Yeah, instead of all the rock going to the management team or the owners, every employee gets to share in that. Right?
Well, and so that's another great thing about ESOPs, frankly, is that you're right. We work, we try to target somewhere around a 5% contribution, so a 5% of salary contribution. But ESOPs are actually really designed to not overcompensate leaders. So there's a compensation threshold. So the leaders at the top often get a little bit smaller slice than the employees do, which for me is great. And it also reminds us that the employees are the ones that are actually out doing the work. Right? Exactly. So they should benefit a little bit better than those of us that sit back at the home office.
So what's your motivation, in leading a large company like this that I know, because I've been a part of leadership, and you're dealing with managed care organizations, you're dealing with government entities, and which we need them. We don't just don't discount that, but at the same time, there's a lot of moving parts of regulation and all that, and sometimes that gets arduous.
Right.
And so, what motivates you? Beyond that how that stuff we have to morass through to actually provide the care.
Well, I think that you've got to come into this work if you're going to be able to stay in this field and do this kind of work for a career. As a leader, even as a frontline worker or managers or supervisors, you have to come into the work knowing that the work is bigger than you or me or the details or the regulations or the changes. You've got to come in with I think a belief that we're here to do right by kids and families. Mm-hmm. And if we all can believe that that's what we're trying to do, we need to do right by kids and families. Kids need to have good childhoods. Families need to be strong. Families need to be connected. Kids need to be safe. And people need to be well.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
If we can get on the same page and agree to all of those things, then working through the changing tides of regulation and payer requirements, et cetera, is just part of what you have to do to live up to doing right by kids and making sure that kids and families are strong and stable. Well,
that's really good. I joined with 3LS in 2014 through Life Care Family. It's the name of our company, Family Services. And what's been great is to kind of build with a company that has a history like a 3LS, because that back end of managing all that, it really takes away from the kind of time that you need to provide the care. And if you don't get too careful, you get caught up in the minutia. And so that's what's great about 3LS. I've got you listed in my book as one of my youngest influencers in my book. I call you kind of the guy that really, you have a wisdom of a grain person, but you also are a young man who's actually accomplished a lot in a short amount of time. And that speaks of your wisdom. I also noticed that when you do work, you bring companies up under 3LS, you're always looking for a chance to win. It's a winning combination. I've noticed that. I've seen you in meetings. I've seen you in how you deal with other businesses. And it's like, I want to see the benefit for your company as well as mine, because I have a niche that I have to fulfill. And that was really helpful for me. And I think that's what's important. I kind of liken 3LS as that Mars kind of a corporation where you got Snickers and you got your Twitters and Twist or whatever the different the different candy bars that they produce. that have really brand names, which Life Care was one. But I want to compliment Erick, because it's hard to kind of bring all these companies together and try and make it all work. But you need an Erick to make it work, or it just doesn't work. So I'll let you comment on that.
Absolutely. So, the other interesting thing about Mars is that, they have candy bars and they have dog food, right?
Yeah.
So Mars is a big organization, and really, what we've tried to do with 3LS is build a back-end structure with an employee-owned environment so that we can facilitate bringing other great organizations together.
Mm-hmm.
To Life Care, and to your bigger point about getting to win-win, right? And what I've learned working in this field, there are, thousands and thousands of organizations across our country that work with kids and families. Some are nonprofit, some are for-profit, some are sole proprietors, some are publicly traded. It's a big melting pot, right?
Sure.
In growing in this business over the last nearly 20 years now, and working in this field, you realize that, again, people come to this table with a higher purpose, right?
Yeah. And
they have invested themselves in building organizations. And when you find a place or a group like Life Care, who's 23 years now, it was approaching 20 when we first got together, you realize Life Care is going to do a lot of things very differently than we do.
Exactly.
Different policies, different procedures, different.
Mm-hmm.
But what you also know is that they've been out here doing the good work for 19 years. So it's not that we know how to do something better than them. The reality is there are some things we're going to be better at, and there are going to be some things that you're going to be better at. Right. So let's find the places where we can enhance each other.
Yeah.
And make sure that everyone comes out on the other side as a winner.
Yeah, and I think you can see, just as he's talking, that's wisdom. Not everybody has that, in business, doesn't have that acumen to say, hey, I'm going to take your company. I don't really give a rip. I'm going to do whatever I want to. And that's not Erick. And I want to encourage you, if you're going to be a leader and you're going to be up and coming leader, we're talking about a lot of investment of time and energy to make this happen. It doesn't just happen, but it has extreme rewards at the end of the day, right?
Well, it does. And so the other thing to leaders to say is that this is the hard way to do it. It's hard to try to find win-win in as many situations as you can. And you can't always find win-win. I mean, sometimes somebody's not going to win.
Right.
But if you come about things always trying to find win-win, it's going to be harder on the front end. It's going to be harder in transitions and as cultures come together. Mm-hmm. But in the long run, you're going to learn the best from each. And that's going to enhance you over a longer term than the short run.
I know guys that I used to work out, but I know some guys that really work out, and it's like expanding, tearing down that muscle and really building it.
Right.
It's a painful process, but at the end, the results prove, right? And so this is what's exciting about, starting, I started my company with $650 in a savings account. Okay. And, Erick, he'll have great stories, I'm sure, about how Omni, if we wanted to go there. But what I'm trying to say is, I didn't know that over 23 years later that I would have a company that could do over all that time period, if you added all the dollars together, probably $70 million. Okay, but what I'm trying to say is, it started with very little capital investment, and it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and trying to figure it out along the way. I didn't have all the management experience. I have my degree in counseling and all things. But what I'm trying to say is, I think for some reason, God has a redemption part of his nature, which is wonderful for someone like me, because he can help us find people, find things that in corporations that are different than us, that complement us. And it's painful, but it's important to learn and grow and not feel like you know it all. Am I emphasizing that?
No, you're absolutely right. And the other piece to it, especially for here, but not just people in our business. People start organizations, start companies because they're passionate about something.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't sit around your dining room table 4 years ago and set out to build an empire.
No.
You said, can we scrape together $650 so we can try to help people?
Right. Exactly.
And
where's the starting point? Okay, got to start a nonprofit, right?
Right. And it doesn't have to be nonprofits.
Right.
It can
be a for-profit.
It can be.
Right.
I want to start a restaurant. I want to do good food. I want to.
Right.
I want to
work from home.
I want to build a business. I want to grow jobs.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs are often, the money part and the value you create is important.
Absolutely.
But that, I don't think, is what really motivates true entrepreneurs.
No.
I think it's more about the building.
Exactly. Yeah, I really, I found out, and this is one thing I love about Erick too, is, trying to realize what your giftings are is important, but also realizing the giftings of others. And also, I was thinking about this, when you think about your early impressions of people that have been in your life, and I know Erick can speak to this. I had some great family members that were kind of like attributes to and strengths that I didn't realize what their giftings were, but I sure found out in starting my own company. And that's part of the success story of being a leader is what are the people around you that are so much better than you and things that you never really needed to do in the first place. And I found that out. Board members are my own family. I leaned on them. And I know Erick can speak to this too. He didn't come into this as a CEO with, okay, I'm suddenly just going to walk in with all this vast experience. But he brought all the experiences that he did have. And that's what I'm trying to say is if you're going to start a business, this podcast is about building of a legacy, not that you've accomplished it yet. And so that's what I'm really speaking to today is most of you. And maybe you are a legacy leader and you're trying to find out what is it that I'm missing in my own company. And we're trying to help you guys think through that too as well. But tell us about the family influencers you had. I had a dad who helped me build out my first office, took over my wife's garage, which she was not happy about. When we talked through that, had to work through that. But bottom line is, what is it that you found in your own family and some of the attributes that, down there in Georgia, which I think that's where you were raised.
That's where I was raised.
State of Georgia. But what happened in watching and videotaping your own family, your own values about life? Where did that come from?
Well, I grew up in North Georgia to two working class parents. In North Georgia, there are lots of factories you can work in. Most of them are related to carpet. So my
Dalton place.
My dad worked in Dalton, Georgia, in a carpet, couple of different carpet factories, and did lots of things there, and worked. He always on a different schedule, different shifts, night shift, 3 on, 2 off, weekends. Who knew? But he worked hard. Right. Yeah. My mother stayed home with me for a few years when I was younger, and she went back to work, and she worked in, guess what? A carpet mill, a carpet factory. She worked in the office. So very humble beginnings. Only child, but 15 first cousins that kept me from hopefully developing too many only child traits. And I love them all dearly. We're still very close too. It's great. But the thing about my parents, I'm a first generation college graduate, first generation to, go to graduate school. They taught me the importance of being all in and invested and together. So when I was 5 years old, they got me into T-ball. And my dad was working these crazy schedules, 12-hour days, all these kind of things. And he worked 45 minutes from where we lived. But he was always at my games, and he would come there straight after work. And, eventually Dad becomes the, assistant coach, and then he becomes the coach, right?
Right.
My mother got exposed to scouting through a school night at, a PTA meeting. And she and another lady started the first Tiger Cub program in in our area. And so I started scouting in the very first year of the very youngest program they had. I think I was 6. And
wow.
She got all in. So she helped me through Cub Scouting, and then she pulled my dad in and some other fellows when we moved into the Weeblos and then on into Boy Scouting. But what's interesting, I was just talking to my mother about this yesterday. My mom was a registered scouter for 29 years.
Wow.
I was only in scouting for 12. That means that she stayed on for another 17 after I was gone.
Wow.
And worked at the district level as a volunteer. My father stayed on as scoutmaster of my old troop. Well, after I was gone, he served as scoutmaster right until he passed away from cancer. So he served as scoutmaster until he was diagnosed with cancer, and then he became the assistant. And he stayed active up until about 6 months before he passed away, when he just physically couldn't do it anymore. So
pouring into people's lives.
Pouring into people's lives and modeling the behavior that, it's not about us. It's about what we're doing for others.
Wow.
So, and, there's so many things about scouting and powerful messages that have shaped my life. But in thinking about this today, I think of one of the scouting mottos about cheerful service, right? It's about doing things for others, but doing it cheerfully.
Right.
Not because you feel like you have to, but because you want to.
Absolutely.
And last bit here, Kenny, full circle. Scouting has changed much over the years, and now I have 2 daughters. And, I thought my time in scouting is over. Well, guess what? Scouting has changed now. And the first all-female scout troops were chartered and started a week ago.
That's pretty cool.
And my 5th grader went to her first scout meeting on Monday night. And last night we sat around my kitchen table practicing tying knots. She's all in. So I'm excited that
I love that.
It
comes full circle.
It's full circle. And now, there's a lot of heartburn with some folks about girls in the Boy Scouts and all this. But at the end of the day, you got to forget about all of the rules of, and the regulations. And remember, scouting is about developing character and leadership in young people.
Yeah.
That should be for everybody.
Absolutely. Right? My own mother, why I got into counseling, would sit on the phone. I didn't hear her do a lot of talking, but I heard her do a lot of listening. She was listening and then encouraging people at the end. And, there's in the Bible, everybody should have a Barnabas, a Paul, and a Timothy. Barnabas was the encourager. Timothy was the young apprentice. And, and then you have Paul, who was the journeyman, and that's what we're really talking about here, Eric, is that we're meant for a higher purpose. God calls us to a higher purpose, and we either choose to go that path, or we get more selfish and self-centered. But we learn that unselfishness from people like your parents, like my mother and my dad, who often were giving to church and work and choirs, and I sang and all this stuff. I mean, all those experiences, contribute to what we become. And so I'm really excited about continuing on with Eric. We're going to just kind of wrap up our first segment here, but I want to thank him for coming, and we're going to be back in just a few minutes to kind of do a segment 2. And you're really going to enjoy this second segment as well as what you've already heard. So look forward to talking to you in a few minutes.